And now we're in the second part, or the after part of the lesson, or a workshop, a life skills workshop, which will be the experiential part, right? The actual part where we get to play and we get to experience what we may have been learning that day, or a population of the learning that has happened for us. So I'm going to give the floor to Tammy Nielsen. And it's very interesting for us today because it's a world of connection. It's like a fabric of threads that are never ending and connecting and reconnecting. Liz was Tammy's instructor, my instructor, my life skills coach instructor is also here. Tammy and I collaborated with the Life Skills Coach iCoach website. Here, coach is here. I coach some of you here. Your coaches are here. This is like a big family. This is like really, we are a community. We are a learning community, and we want to keep it this way. We really, really want to keep it this way. So without much ado, Tammy, anyway, you're in the best of hands, and here she is.
Thank you so much, Dolores. I've been saying to different people that I've seen that this is a really full circle moment for me because Liz White actually introduced me to the Y. I got hired when I was in college at a ripe age of 19 by the Pre-Voc program, which was a pre-vocational program for disabled youth. And I had a conditional acceptance because I didn't have a life skills coaching certificate. So I was accepted with the guarantee that I would take the program by the end of that summer. I had no idea what I was getting into, and that was the summer that they actually created the Phase 2. So in true Tammy fashion, I took Phase 2 first. I was in the first ever pilot of the Phase 2 Life Skills Coach Training Program, and I got my Phase 2 certificate, and then in August, I co-facilitated Phase 1 with Mickey Mayhall to get my grade 1. So when I saw the call for the invitation to both participate but also to present, I thought, let me give back. Life skills has been a foundation in my career. I have my own practice. Now we just celebrated, believe it or not, 25 years. I have a business called Creating Realities, where I get the privilege of working with individuals, organizations, teams, and communities to help them create their reality. I'm a coach, I'm a facilitator, and I'm a community animator. And I was in what could I share that would help to both animate the power of life skills, but also to demonstrate kind of how I've taken it and evolved it and utilized it in my career. So I wanted to talk to you today about something called collective wisdom. Let me start by saying, please take what I share that fits with you and leave the rest. Also, that what I'm going to share with you today, I could talk for hours about this work, and I want to try to talk about it for 25 minutes so that you can actually experience it for 25 minutes. So I'm going to talk about a piece of the pie, but I have had the opportunity to work with this in different environments, which I'll talk about. So collective wisdom circles. My hope today is to really share some of my passion in hosting collective wisdom circles, to share some inspiring stories of the impacts that I've seen in working with collective wisdom, and to really give you an experience of deeply listening and connecting to your own wisdom as leaders. Just quickly, before I go on, how many of you are life skills coaches actively right now? I'm just curious. So about a quarter of the group. How many people are managers or lead teams? About a third of the group. How many of you have been in a life skills coaching group? And how many of you have no idea what life skills is? Perfect. Yay. So excited. So I've kind of broken down my time into wanting to offer three things to you. Tell you the story of how I came to Collective Wisdom through my own work and co-created the Collective Wisdom Circles. I want to share, there's a lot of theory and research about Collective Wisdom work, and I really, as I said, I want to have you experience a journey of Collective Wisdom by accessing your own wisdom as a leader. As I shared, I'm a coach, and I do a lot of facilitating, coaching, both independently. People come and see me, but I have the opportunity to work with a lot of organizations. I started seeing a lot of themes about 3 years ago. I'll tell you this, I'm going to focus today on the story of working with women leaders, but I have had the opportunity to use collective wisdom circles with the University Health Network in circles, in groups, day-longs, where they support leadership development with 300 people coming together. I've had the opportunity to use it as peer supervision for different coaches in the Ontario Network and trainers. I've also had the opportunity to use it around burnout and resiliency in large environmental organizations like Greenpeace. So there's so many different ways in which I've found to apply this. What I'm going to talk about today is using it with women leaders in the not-for-profit and social change movement. So as a coach, both working in organizations with these women leaders and also coming to see me in my own private practice, I kept seeing a common trend: burnout, isolation, overwhelmed, and feeling an over sense of responsibility for everything that they were in control, asking to lead. And I'll be honest, as a coach, I found myself getting a little concerned and disillusioned. What are we doing to our leaders? How do I create some kind of container of support that's going to offer them the opportunity to step back and to kind of reevaluate and to see what it is that they are getting caught in as a story of what leadership should look like? So I literally, I think it was Ian that asked if anyone had a vision. I literally, in the bathtub one night, had a vision of women sitting around a big cauldron, stirring it, naked feet, all I saw was feet in women's hands stirring this pot, telling their stories. And I was like, tribe. We've lost a sense of tribe. We've lost a sense of community and support. And so the vision continued, and I chose to write it down. And I thought, what can I do with this? And so my practice is very much about, instead of sitting in my office and developing something, I go out and talk to as many people about it as possible to find out, is there a resonance with what I'm seeing and what's needed? And I get people to literally co-create and help create what it is that's needed. So I chose 10 different social change leaders that I've worked with, women, and I asked them questions. I asked them questions about what's their current reality look like? Where are they getting the support they need? What stories are they getting caught in around their leadership? What is the experience that they're having? So I had 10 lunches over about a 3-month period, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Everybody was experiencing a lot of the same things. And what I found myself asking is, what is the container that can bring some of these women together to really drop down and more deeply listen to themselves, access? Because every one of them would tell me what wasn't working and told me what was needed. They were telling me what was needed, and yet they were having a hard time integrating that or applying that into their own journey. So that was the beginning of Collective Wisdom Circles for Women, which we started 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. What I witnessed. So Collective Wisdom Circles, we have offered them in different ways. We've offered one day just as an access point to trying something new that might be different and scary. We've offered them in weekend day retreats on the Toronto Island. We've offered 8-week series, and we've offered them as a weekend retreat. So we've had different kind of configurations of it to offer different access points and risk levels of involvement. And as of last season, we've had a waiting list of 12 to 15 women for each gathering. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but we've expanded our leadership team since then. Let me tell you what I witnessed in bringing, on average, there's anywhere from 12 to 15 women that come together in these gatherings. I witnessed women opening to trusting their own power as leaders. It's amazing to me to have a physically powerful role, but feel powerless in it. Has anyone ever had that experience? Yeah. I witnessed women redefining and rewriting their own leadership stories, really sitting back and asking, what's hindering me about this belief I have? So one example that comes to mind is a senior leader in our city of Toronto having this idea that if she gave more, did more, it would help create more equity in our high priority neighborhoods. One woman had that belief. Do you think that's possible? No, I've certainly got caught in that. Giving more, thinking that it's going to have greater impact. And it was her, and I'll tell you how, what the process looks like, but it was her journey to ask that question of herself that shifted that paradigm of thinking for her. It wasn't me as a coach. How many of you are individual coaches in the room? Yeah. How many of you have your clients coming to you asking you to try to figure out their problems? So it's amazing, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. It's amazing how many questions I could individually ask, and yet you put 15 women in the room together, they ask themselves and each other that question, The change I see is far more fast and more dramatic than me as one person asking that question. I watched women challenge outdated norms and identify new boundaries for self-care. This idea of who they should be as a parent and as a worker, and what does that look like? I watched them challenge the expectations of their employers to be able to redefine how they could take better care of themselves. I watched them let go of self-doubts and criticism that impeded their effective leadership. It's amazing to me what speed, the amount of deliverables that we expect, and how that separates us out from identifying what it is that we're offering and how effective are we being. And so almost every woman that I met was questioning, should I be doing this? Am I any good at doing it? Is my work having any impact? And it was wonderful to watch them step back and identify. I watched them open to taking in that impact that they're having. And more than anything, we had set an intention for hosting these circles to help build organically a community of women. The way that women have connected is beyond our expectations. And I put a couple of words there because there was a creation of passionate and authentic relationships that naturally created a community of women leaders. It's amazing to me, I can set an intention for myself, but if my colleague and friend Nadia knows that that's my intention, to take care of myself better, I can't get away with it in the same way. And that's what I watched, women holding each other accountable, challenging each other. This is a Marianne Williamson quote that I found kept emerging. And there's something very simple about the theory and the model of collective wisdom. It's creating space for us to hear, going back to the affect, and connecting with that emotion, connecting with the variety of truth, to find those true feelings, and from there allowing the emergence of wisdom within to happen. I'm happy to share these slides. I see people taking pictures. So let me tell you a little bit about where this comes from. And again, in true Tranby fashion, I started hosting collective wisdom circles before I read the book. I didn't even realize that there was a theory behind it. I'm such an experiential learner. I like to dive right in, and then I go, oh, people have researched this. Oh, people know the neuroscience behind it. Over 10 years ago, the Collective Wisdom Initiative was formed by a network of practitioners and scholars out of the United States. The Fitzer Institute, which is based in the States, also supported the development of this network and a book called The Power of Collective Wisdom and The Trap of Collective Folly. Again, because I only have 50 minutes with you, I'm not going to get too much into the collective folly, but the idea of anything can hinder or help. So we can bring people together in a collective way, and we can go into a dark and unhealthy place. I'm going to focus today on just why is it important to access collective wisdom. You can find more information there. One of the things I wanted to say is about my journey with the Collective Wisdom Circle before I jump into some of the theory is I don't necessarily use the life skills model as it's mapped out in my preparation of a design. But as you were standing up here right now saying, what did we discover this morning in Liz's presentation? What did we discover? I was like, I'm using it all. And so I really believe that this wisdom lives in all of us. And that my invitation today is really just to plant a seed to how can you think about your role as what I like to call a host of accessing that wisdom. You'll hear me use that language a lot. The journey of hosting collective wisdom circles for me really shifted my role from facilitator to host. I still facilitate a lot. For me, the slight distinction is as a facilitator, I come with an agenda. I come with a real framework of what it is I'm being hired to do, what it is I'm being asked to facilitate. As a host, I'm embracing the mystery and setting an intention of why everyone's coming together and then convening an experience and a conversation. I think that requires a different aspect of my competency. Somebody used the word intuition earlier. It 100% relies on my intuition, and it also requires me to detach and to surrender. Does anyone have an agenda for a group and you get in within 3 minutes, you have to open up the window and throw the agenda out because the group has another agenda? Yeah, that's exactly what happens. So from the book, these are some of the definitions they've offered. Wisdom reflects a capacity for sound judgment, discernment, and the objectivity to see what is needed in the moment. Collective wisdom, which is where life skills comes in for me, there's something really powerful about putting a group of people together in a room, right? Collective wisdom reflects a similar capacity to learn together, evolve towards something greater and wiser that we cannot do as individuals alone. I think back to my own experience in life skills, and that's why I said it when we were standing up here with Liz's line. It is the capacity of the trainers at the Y that they saw what I could offer. I had no clue that I could offer what they were seeing that I could offer. To this day, I was like, what did Sally Palmatier see in me? That gave, why would you hire someone that doesn't have a life skills coach certificate to facilitate life skills programming for the summer? So there's something really powerful about being witnessed and seen by somebody else beyond what I could see capable of myself. We believe, and this is their quote, we believe our capacity for collective wisdom is innate and an emergence. It's an emergence in the group, catalyzed by the awareness of compelling need and higher purpose. So that word emergence is something that really excites me. You know, it's trusting that there's something already there. One of the things in my early career that really stressed me out as a consultant was the idea that if I went into an organization, I had to have the answers. Anyone else had that experience? And maybe just want to stay at home underneath blankets. I didn't want to go out because I had to have all the answers. One of the things about shifting my perspective and questions are one of the key tools that I use is in shifting my perspective about being the person that helps to create that container for that wisdom to emerge, takes the pressure off me having to have all the answers. I also believe personally it's arrogant. I'm not calling you all arrogant, but I call it my arrogance meter. Even if it's an individual coaching client come in, I think it's arrogant, I'm gonna pick on you, Cheryl, but if Cheryl comes into my office, that I think I have the answers for her. I think it does two things. It creates an illusion that I have all the answers, but it also disservices her because I'm inherently telling her she's incapable, when she's the only person capable of finding a resolution and a transformation for whatever it is she's seeking. And that's one of the things I love about the collective wisdom model. This is my synopsis using my own language. Collective wisdom for me is a journey of accessing the deeper inherent knowledge that lives within every individual group and community. May it be in a coaching capacity or as a facilitator or as an animator, I love the opportunity to go in and access that information and knowledge. You know, I just shared with you that I have the opportunity to work with Greenpeace International. You know, I go in and they barely can keep their heads up. They're so exhausted and they're constantly on all of their electronic devices because they're doing actions every day to try to save our planet. Can you imagine the weight of trying to go to bed every night when you know there's been an oil spill that's going to change our water supply in a year's time? Like that's just so, and yet by just asking them some simple questions and having them be together as a group to dialogue around this experience, they came up with their own ideas of what would it look like to build their own resiliency and to take better care of themselves to try to avoid burnout. And we didn't say that we're going to totally avoid burnout. Burnout is a natural byproduct of that work. How can you do that work and not burn out? How do we actually put some things in place that support them in becoming more resilient in the nature of the work that they do? They came up with all the answers. It is a process of dropping down to listen and witness our own innate knowing and creating space for authentic sharing. One of the things I didn't expect when I hosted the first 8-week series for the Collective Wisdom Circle for women leaders was how much they wanted me to tell them what to do. Like I should have accepted it, but I was like, no, this is a circle, we're coming together, we're slowly unpacking, and I got a lot of resistance of like, well, no, just tell me what to do differently and I'll do it. And what was so powerful was I kept saying, there's 2 invitations here. I'm asking you to listen first and foremost to yourself and to the other women in this group, and also to witness your own process and to be witnessed. And once women could embrace that, there was this experience of being able to get to the truth, to get to the authenticity, and to get to their deeper knowing. And I find it hard to find words to describe what happens when one woman in the room is authentic. It's just like this domino effect where everybody starts to access that point. I do want to say that I personally started with women leaders because that was the closest relationship that I had. For every circle that we've held in the last 2.5 years, we've had anywhere from 3 to 5 men ask why we're not hosting them for men. So I am excited by that, but I'm also been really clear that that's not my experience because I'm not a man. So we've been slowly nurturing some leadership, and so in 2004 we will be starting to host both co-ed circles, but also circles specifically for male leaders. Collective wisdom honors the knowing that already exists, and I believe that it's our role to access that knowing that already exists within every individual group or system. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of large community development projects. One of them was in Walpole First Nations, and if anyone knows that community, First Nations community, they were fighting for their land for decades. They finally got their land back, and it's in no man's land between the United States and Canada. And guess what happened? It's non-regulated. There's no government body that oversees it. So every venture capitalist, does anyone know what a venture capitalist is? Like, I'm talking day 2, they get their land back and Hummers are being flown into this community. This is a community that lives in intense poverty, has huge addiction and mental health needs, and a ton of history of trauma, personal trauma and cultural trauma from the ways in which they have taken the rights and their land away from them. At the exact same time, it was the first time they had voted in a female chief. And the first thing she said is, let's come to circle. And she spent 3 years with everyone in the community doing storytelling circles. We supported them from behind the scenes to capture what's important to everybody if we're gonna have this investment made. The only time that as a consulting team we got to go in and do this, we chose not to be a part of the circles we don't reflect, and I'm not a First Nations woman, so I was not a part of it. It was held by that community. The only circle I got to sit in is the circle that they invited they invited the venture capitalists to come to a storytelling circle. So anyone who might want to invest in this community had to come. So I think there was about 80 investors that wanted to come. 40 showed. And they made it very clear, we will not take your money unless we hear your story. About 5 people got chronically ill very fast when they realized what was happening. And I'm not talking it was a fake. Like we had heart palpitations in the room. Like people really viscerally were uncomfortable. And I'll say out of the other 25 people who stayed, there was only about 5 people that could really meet them and what they wanted to know is, what's your story? And the challenge was many of them don't have their own individual story. They're representing a corporation. And that corporation doesn't have a story that's connected to their values. So it shafted the weak really quickly. To me, that's collective wisdom. And what was happening in that room is that the community's values were being held and being called out. And then that community got really clear about where they wanted to make decisions and who would meet them and who would work with them. So that's a larger scale example of how I believe it's our role to help access that. In this theory, there's a lot of complexity, but I thought would be most helpful to ground you today is that there's 6 stances, what they call 6 stances. The stances are what help deepen our capacity for wise action and prepare us for collective wisdom to arise. I can't remember who it was, but somebody along the line said active listening. Who was it that said active listening? Yeah. The first stance is about the ability to deeply listen. I think the challenge with that is as coaches and as facilitators, it's an external listening. If you were in my group, it's about my commitment to listen to you. The invitation I pose to you today is, how are you listening to yourselves? Because if I can't access my own wisdom and I can't access that deep knowing in myself, I cannot be authentically present with my group. I don't think that's easy, because all kinds of stuff comes up when I listen, and we talk about that. All kinds of triggers, all kinds of insecurities, all kinds of fears. But the invitation is to deeply listen, and in our groups we also add witness. So witnessing myself, being able to step outside of my own story to be able to witness where I am and where I'm not. The suspension of certainty. Doesn't that sound easy? How many of you feel comfortable with uncertainty? Very few of us do. Why do you think that that's a stance to being able to access wisdom, either within an individual or a group?
Because then you don't have your own focused agenda. You have to open up your mind to allow other ideas and senses to come in.
Yeah.
And
So I don't know if you heard it, but it's if I have to let go of my agenda to open up the opportunity and to let other things come in. Absolutely. I think this is one of the most challenging things as a host or a coach is I get attached. I get an attached idea of where I think you should go or where I want this group to go. The opportunity, which I find very liberating, is to hold space for a group and say, I have no idea where we're going. And it's funny, people get terrified by that initially, but then they feel total permission to go there. We just started a collective wisdom leadership initiative. We're helping to build more of a hosting team so we can offer this at greater capacity. And these people are all paying to be there for 3 months with myself and my other hosts. And last night I said to them, I have no idea when we'll be at the end of 12 weeks. So I have no idea. And I saw the what do you mean you have no idea? I want to know where you're going to take me. And what I could come back to is what I do know. What I know is you all have the capacity to host. What I know is that we all have ways in which we have strengths, and we all have areas in which we are struggling, and together we're going to explore that. Seeing the whole system and seeking diverse perspectives. That stance is an invitation, and I wanted to tell you a story about that. That stance is an invitation to shift my own perspective. I have a certain set of lenses that I see the world through, always. And unless I'm challenging myself, I think it's such a gross metaphor, but I love it. Jacob Moreno, who's the founder of Psychodrama, this has been a trainer of mine in Psychodrama over the years, talks about the idea of taking my eyeballs out of my sockets and putting them in yours. Gross image, apologize for those of you who are visual. But I love it. I love it because what it means is how is it that I can step outside of myself and my own stories, my own limitations, my own fears, and my own insecurities to see what is it that I am withholding, where am I getting stuck, and what is it that I could do. And I have had the privilege of coaching many of the women who've been in the circles, and there's ways I've asked questions as a coach, or ways I've posed opportunities for reflection that they have taken, but not made changes. As one woman who has a very different experience in life with the same challenge or the same theme, asks that person a question, everything changed. And so that's what I love about the collective wisdom, is the opportunity to have insight and perspective beyond my own and seeing it as a whole picture. The other story that I can offer there is I'll never forget that we did a 2-day retreat on the Toronto Island, and there was 2 women that I would have never thought. I'm a connector. I love networking and connecting people and to resources. And there was 2 women, both who held senior leadership roles. One, I'll put her in her mid-50s, 55, 58, somewhere like that. Long-term advocate of immigrant rights in our city, and been doing that work for over a couple of decades. And then a young African woman who is advocating on behalf of African Caribbean Canadians who are Black, particularly Black young men who are not getting an education in our city. And the 2 of them asked each other questions that totally shifted their perspective of how they need to do their work as leaders. I would have never put those 2 women in a room together intentionally. And yet being in a circle and having an opportunity to ask each other questions shifted. They are peer coaches for each other now. And I literally, the 55-year-old woman or whatever will say, I'm thinking of using this strategy. And the young one will say, are you crazy? You're never going to access people from that perspective. Okay? Respecting other, and these 2 are connected for me, 4 and 5. Respect of others and group discernment. I think one of the challenges of having the power of hosting or facilitating a group is that we have our discernment. The group has a whole other sense of discernment of what actually needs to happen. And the invitation in here is, how do we listen? So I remember one night having an agenda of wanting to unpack and look at some of their stories, and one of the women came in, and she had her finger on the pulse, that one of the underlying themes that was going on in the group was mental health. That a lot of the women were struggling with intense depression and anxiety, either in themselves or in their families. And somebody named it. And that opened up a whole conversation that created an authenticity and a connection and a what's the word I would look for? It created an opportunity for somebody to feel like other people outside of their own culture get it. Empathy, thank you. Welcoming all that arises. This sounds so easy, welcoming all that arises. You know, this happened last night in our initial training. I thought everyone would be so excited and gung-ho, and when we started looking over what the 12 weeks would look like together, the resistance in the room just rised. And some part of me could have gone, come on people, get excited. But no, what I did is I just held place for the resistance. Absolutely, this is scary. Tell me more, like let's unpack and explore more. And that again gave people permission to engage in the process even more. And the last one, which again I think is not necessarily as easy, but is I think essential, is trusting in the transcendence. And I'm actually just going to go to that slide. Underlying critical to all of these stances of collectivism emergence is respecting the respect of human agency, the power of nature, Mother Earth, nature being connected, and the significance of spiritual dimension to the activities we undertake. So one of the things that we very proactively articulated in our invitation for collective wisdom was honoring the rites of passage that women leaders were on. Meaning, how do we mark these different phases, times of life, stories that they're on, how do we actually mark that? And consistently what we've heard is there's been very few opportunities. There's a disconnection from their own elders, their own community members, and there's been an opportunity to reconnect and find ways of marking these phases, maybe a letting go. I can't tell you how many women have changed careers going through the wisdom circle because they realized they're not because they hated what they were doing, they were done. But there's no ending rituals in our culture. And so they had these circles of women that shared in that journey with them. We also look upon the world with awe and wonder. We are better able to see constructive possibility rather than simple constructing limits. It's just so much more powerful when you're seeing someone else take a risk, try something that you really want to try, but you don't think is possible. And what's amazing is, like, I don't know how many times I've heard people say, you can say that? You can ask that? You can do that? Because if that's not been my experience and I've not seen that opportunity, then I don't know it's possible. And so there's something really powerful in bringing people together to access that collectively, that accesses possibility. What I'd like to do is give you lots of time, so I'm going to give credit to Cheryl Gordon, who's actually in the room. One of the things that's come out of the collective wisdom work is that the women are organizing themselves and creating an anthology where they wanted to write their stories or illustrate their stories and tell their stories. And Cheryl Gordon is a woman of words and loves to play with words and created this visual that just really spoke to her journey with the wisdom. So I will come back to this slide. So building on your previous session, I need your help with creative problem solving. I would like you to get into groups of 5 in a theater-style seating. So what I'd like to ask you to do, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do, is I'd like you to try to, this space could be used also because you can use it, but you're probably going to have to, unfortunately, turn around and meet with people in front of each other, behind each other. But I'd like you to find 3 to 4 other people that you might not know and to form a circle. While you're doing that, I have 2 people that are going to come around and give you a stone, 1 stone per group. And once the groups are formed, if you guys can just introduce yourselves, I'm going to ring the bell and then I'm going to tell you what we're doing. So find 3 to 4 other people. Thank you, everyone. I can tell that I'm in a room full of planners, coordinators, and facilitators because that was probably the most effortless way of doing that. There's a couple of core ingredients that are really important in Wisdom Circle. One of them is circle. So thank you for finding a way of making circle in a square space. The other thing is about reflection. So in a minute, I'm going to give you a few questions, and I'm going to ring the bell, and you're going to get an opportunity in silence just to take a moment and reflect, and allow whatever comes up in those questions to come up. You will not have to share everything that comes up with the group. You'll have discernment. What's important for me in that is let whatever comes up come up, and try not to edit it. Try not to critique it. Because sometimes the most instant reactions are the most authentic reactions. They're not always the most politically correct or the most gracious, but they're usually the most deepest part of my own wisdom when they come up. So I'm working into groups. Does everyone have a stone? Yes. So we use a talking item, and today I decided to use crystals. And it's an opportunity to really place our focus and intention on the person that's holding it. How many of you, when it's a circle and it's coming around to you, don't hear the 2 to 3 people in front of you because you're busy thinking about what you're going to say?
Yeah.
So we're not going to go in a circle. Okay? You're going to get a chance. I'm going to ring the bell. We'll go into some reflection. I'll put the questions up before I do that. When I ring the bell again, you'll get a chance to whoever wants to go first to share will choose the crystal that's sitting in someone's hand. And whenever you're done speaking, just put your hand back into the middle of the room, and whoever feels like they want to go next will go next. As in any circle, you have full permission not to participate. What I really ask that you not do is cross-talk, analyze, or try to fix anything. No one or nothing is broken in this room today. That make sense? Any questions about what I'm asking you to do? You will have about 20 minutes. So I'm going to ask you to self-govern timing to make sure space is created for everyone. Okay, I'm not going to ring every 3 to 4 minutes. That will be distracting. I'm just asking you to self-govern as a group. Okay? And then we will come back and I'll unpack some of your shares. So these are the 3 questions. You do not have to answer each question. These are reflective questions for you. What helps me deeply listen to my own wisdom as a leader? What hinders my ability to be present to my own wisdom within groups? What stops me? What resonates for me around collective wisdom? You're welcome to share any experiences or beliefs that really came up for you today as I was sharing some of my own stories and journey with collective wisdom circles. So I'm going to put the mic down and I'm going to ring, and I'm going to ask us to take a breath together. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes. If not, just gaze off and let whatever answers come up to these questions arise. So whoever is holding the rock, just simply put it out in the middle of the circle, and whoever feels called to go first. I will give you about a 2-minute bell to let you know we're close to wrapping up. We have about 2 minutes, okay?
As a leader, what calling is to believe and say that everybody in my group have their own messages. If we can have them truth out, and we can sing that even with children, to be able to explore and to sing that they can come out.
I am doing the last phase of life skills right now, and I've worked with life skills groups quite a bit, so I'm still a little time.
What I like the most is she mentioned how important it is to be teachers need to accept we have no time for creativity. We have short time because you need to.
Please finish your final thoughts.
It's just exactly like I was describing where you go.
I'll just take a moment and acknowledge your circle. Acknowledge your circle. Just take a moment and acknowledge your circle before we open your circles back up.
So I think acknowledges the various ethnicities and histories and cultural values that infuse that, and it's literally a lot of the things that are bringing
Welcome back.
philosophy.
Welcome back.
I'm always open to hearing what
No. So I'd love to do just popcorn style meeting, just one word, kind of hearing out. What were some words that came up in your sharing that stayed with you, that either your sharing came from you or something that inspired you, like what you heard from someone else? Just words. And we'll just do popcorn. I invite you to speak as loudly as possible. I may repeat them if I think they're not heard. Enriching. Empowering. Relating.
Connecting.
Trust. I missed the one back here.
Non-judgment.
Non-judgment.
Connecting.
Connecting.
The body.
The body.
Trusting the process.
Trusting the process.
One of
Yeah.
the words.
Of course, Dolores would take 2 words. Reflecting. Did I miss something over here?
No, we were just saying that. Who's the person who said the body?
The body. Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Well, I guess speaking from my own experience, when I'm not, my wisdom is in my body.
My wisdom is in my body.
Wordly, I get you. Okay, got
But
it.
even literally, my wisdom is in my body.
Yeah, missed that.
And there's a way in which reflection, breathing, just sitting together in a circle can reconnect me with my body. What are words that you heard that are things that help us connect to our wisdom? Silence. Awareness.
Co-leaders.
Co-leaders. Witness.
Perspective.
Perspective.
Lack of expectation.
Lack of expectation. Sharing. What hinders? What stops you from being able to connect? And trust. Self-doubt.
Having to get the facts.
That was 3 words, Dolores. You're pushing the envelope.
Facts.
Facts. Having to get those facts. Noise. Yeah.
Fixing.
Fixing.
Agenda.
An agenda. Yeah. I missed it, sir.
Yeah.
Fear. Yeah. It's a big one.
Pride. Pride.
Pride. Small c control. Judgment. So what is your takeaway? I'm going to wrap us up now. There's some cake sitting behind me. You can feel it. What is your what's one thing you're taking away from the invitation of collective wisdom?
I was sharing with my group how you mentioned the group that and I was saying how wisdom, collective wisdom can take different forms. It's not just suggestions, ideas, facts. It's literally telling something.
Yeah. So collective wisdom can take many forms. It doesn't have to be just facts, it can be stories.
I wish it was used in politics.
Yeah. Did everyone hear that? I wish it was used in politics. There's deep wisdom. We elect these officials and then we don't actually have a process that allows that wisdom to come out. Absolutely. Other takeaways. It's not a test, I'm just curious.
I wish it was used in more organizations.
Yeah.
I wish it was sort of built in and people were allowed to just come in. Well, again, marrying creative problem solving with wisdom and all of this relates.
I wish it could be in more organizations and it was a process that held that space.
Just feel one of many.
One of many.
To be open to gathering this collective wisdom in any setting. I was sharing, like, this happened to me with just a quick conversation at a grocery store that something someone said to me really resonated with me. That person will have no idea, but you have to be open to that.
Yeah, be open to it happening anywhere.
Yeah.
I just got what I call truth bumps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And often it happens where with the people I least expect it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
concur with Heather Lady, it's not only corporate, but I would actually like to see it as a learning tool within the school system.
Yeah, see it as a learning tool.
And to pass the road that has so entrenched and doesn't speak to all kids. I would love to see life skills in the schools. Anybody listening here? That would be my dream, of having that wisdom circle and having, breaking down those walls and barriers.
Yes. But, yeah, one more
I was
thought.
just gonna further to this lovely lady's thought, there is a life skills class, and I have an identified child. And what they consider lifestyle skills, what you and I consider life skills, and what really is present, is so not that.
Learning skills.
It's, please and thank you and cooking and can I use my bank card? Okay, yes, that's deeply important. However, it doesn't apply here.
And I have a son that was identified too, and they wanted to do that process, and I'm like, no, that's not what the problem is.
They have it at Fieldboard, they have values education in the middle school.
So I'm going to stop us from problem solving at the moment and just bringing you back to, certainly it was my hope today to plant some seeds. I believe that each one of us, doesn't matter what role you hold, can hold space for these kind of collective wisdom processes. It may be in the grocery store with one conversation, and that to really invite you to think beyond facilitation and having an agenda and convening, creating and holding space by asking questions, inviting. I heard the word while I was just holding space while you were all sharing. Collective wisdom is vulnerable. Coming to my own truth is very vulnerable. And so that there's a lot of resistance to it, but there's a hunger for it. And I think it's all about how I engage with it and how I bring it into my work, and then there's an openness. So thank you for your hour and your morning. And a couple things. Whoever actually ended up with the stone, that's your seed. Take it out and pass it along. A few of you have asked me for business cards. I put my business card over there. You're welcome to grab one and be in touch. I also put a list if you're interested in being added to our invitations for future gatherings that we're having. There's a sign-up list over there, so please let me know and I'll add you to that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I will ask we're just about finishing. We are going to blow the candles of the cake because this is a celebration and we're going to eat the cake. But before I send you on your way, and you're welcome to hang around and talk to us, I'm going to invite my presenters to the front of the room, Anna and Ian and Liz. And I'm going to ask my colleague, Eva, where are you? Right there. Because we do have a little gift for you to show you our appreciation from being here. Here you are. And I'm going to ask Eva to wrap us up. And yes, it's that. I hope having this morning, you can tell we didn't plan this really well, but anyway, I hope that coming this morning was worth your time. It certainly has made my morning wonderful to see so many of you here. I'm going to invite you over because we're going to blow the 40-year anniversary candles together. And with that, we will part, and you are welcome to stay. There is more refreshments at the entrance. We will be here if you want to talk to us or ask questions, or you can talk to each other and, of course, network and find out who else is here that might have a link to you or something that you need to know or someone that you really want to get to know a little bit better. So please join us for the cake.
Contact with him. I'm actually going to stay in my bed for a couple of hours, which is so amazing. I get into my bed. It'll be nice for a change. No, you didn't. No, my.
Yeah, so that's, and then
Join us, come over, come over.
I know it's ridiculous.
Unless you can
I
go
don't
from
say
such a
very much.
distance.
I don't sound like that guy.
Yes, we're gonna sing. Where is my partner in crime? Eva Pacquiao. Sing it. All right, at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday